China. In China, they say I don't like China. I love China.
Let's talk about Chinese games.
China?
Because things are getting a bit ridiculous.
China.
Straight up putting Spider-Man movement in your official ad? That's wild. Like, do y'all in China not know copyright law exists? You can't just name drop one of the most recognizable superheroes on the planet and expect nobody to notice. And honestly, don't even worry about Sony suing you. Disney and Marvel? Those guys are sharks. They'll tear you apart before your game even hits shelves. The truth is, this isn't even new. A lot of these new Chinese studios have been shamelessly lifting ideas for years. It started in the mobile space. Remember when every mobile ad looked like a cheap knockoff of Clash of Clans, Candy Crush, or PUBG Mobile? That was their whole business model. Find whatever's popular in the West, strip it down, slap in aggressive monetization, and flood the app stores. And for a while, it worked. Billions of dollars were made. But people eventually got sick of it. Players caught on to the copycats, the fake ads, the gotcha scams. Mobile gaming as the future of gaming, that bubble popped fast. Now, with handhelds making a comeback and cloud streaming growing, those old predatory tricks don't land the same. So, naturally, the next step for these companies is to chase the AAA dream. They want to sit at the same table as Sony, Rockstar, and CD Projekt. But here's the difference. When you go after that level, you're no longer stealing from indies or small studios. You're poking billion-dollar giants who live and breathe on protecting their IP. You think Marvel is gonna let a studio casually advertise Spider-Man movement? Nah, they've got an army of $100,000 an hour lawyers that live for this kind of fight. And this isn't an isolated slip-up either. We've already seen the lawsuits brewing. Sony going after Tencent for the Horizon/Light of Motoram case. Totally justified, because when it gets to the point where big publishers are ripping entire gameplay systems, UI designs, or even story beats, it stops being inspired by and starts being blatant theft. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to play some Frankenstein project that takes bits from 5 different successful games, tosses them in a blender, and sells it free to play with 50 layers of gotcha. That's why my hype for games like Phantom Blade Zero and Crimson Desert has dropped off hard. Phantom Blade looked interesting at first, but the more I see, the more it blends into that same UE5 copy-paste aesthetic, right alongside Black Myth Wukong, Wu Chang Fallen Feathers, and half a dozen others. It's like they're all drawing from the same stockpile of dark, edgy fantasy assets and just swapping out character skins. Unreal Engine 5 is a great tool, but it's starting to make everything feel samey. And personally, I'm burned out on that look. Crimson Desert is even worse. The early trailers from a couple years back had people hyped. It looked like a next-gen Witcher competitor. But fast forward to now, and it's night and day. Graphics downgraded, combat looking janky, gameplay loop repetitive as hell. It feels like a completely different game, almost like they couldn't deliver on what they promised and had to scale everything back just to get it out the door. And hey, don't get me wrong, I'll still give them a shot. Who knows, maybe Phantom Blade Zero or Crimson Desert ends up surprising me. Maybe they land some unique mechanics or nail the vibe in a way the trailers don't show. But right now, with the patterns I'm seeing, copycat marketing, lawsuits piling up, downgrade trailers, it's hard to keep expectations high. So, EA finally revealed how Battlefield 6 will run on consoles. And it is about what most of us expected. On PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, you get 2 options, Fidelity Mode or Performance Mode. Fidelity Mode focuses on visuals. On both consoles, it runs at 1440p with a target of 60 frames per second. Switch to Performance Mode and the resolution drops to around 1280, but you get a target of 80 frames per second. For a fast shooter like Battlefield, that extra smoothness matters. The PS5 Pro steps things up even more. In Fidelity Mode, it reaches 2160p at 60 frames per second, basically 4K. In Performance Mode, it runs at 1620p at 80 frames per second. So, if you are looking for a showcase of what the Pro can do, this is it. Now, if you are on the Xbox Series S, it is a different story. That console does not get any graphics options. You are locked at a maximum of 10 1080p and 60 frames per second. No choice between visuals and frames. And of course, PC players get the best numbers. Battlefield 6 can hit 4K at 144 frames per second with the official settings. You can even go uncapped if your rig is strong enough. The game launches October 10th on everything besides Switch 2. Speaking of Switch 2, Black Ops 7 and Borderlands 4 straight up skipping the release for that platform. Here's what's going on. Black Ops 7 is not expected to release on the Nintendo Switch 2 at launch, though it will be available on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series, and PC. While Microsoft has a 10-year agreement to bring Call of Duty to Nintendo platforms, the new Black Ops installment's technical scope and the late availability of Switch 2 development kits made a launch version impractical. A later release for the Switch 2 has not been confirmed but is possible, as both Activision and Microsoft are committed to supporting the platform with future titles. According to a new tweet from the official Borderlands Twitter account, the Borderlands 4 Switch 2 edition has been delayed, and no rescheduled date has been revealed. We do not take this decision lightly, but are committed to ensuring we deliver the best possible experience to our fans, and the game needs additional development and polish time to do that, the team says. We will update you all on the new release timing once we've fully adjusted our plans. So, Ghost of Yōtei reviews are finally out, and I'll be honest, this is the exact kind of moment PlayStation fans live for. The verdict? This thing isn't just good, it's being talked about as a straight-up Game of the Year contender. Everywhere you look, Reddit threads, critic reviews, fan reactions, it's overwhelmingly positive. Let's start with the presentation, because that's what people are losing their minds over. One player on the review mega thread put it simply but perfectly. It has spectacular graphics, great music, and is fun to play. Sometimes you don't need flowery language. Those three things sum up why people are hooked. Another reviewer went even harder, calling it a triumph in every sense, from the sweeping vistas to the haunting soundtrack. It feels like stepping into a samurai epic come to life. That's not just good, that's Goosebumps level praise. And then there's the combat. Sucker Punch clearly doubled down on what worked in Ghost of Tsushima, but tuned it to perfection here. One review said, an excellent sequel. Ghost of Yōtei adds some complexity, but also streamlines the original game's combat into a smoother and more unique experience. Another fan described it as buttery smooth, brutal when it needs to be, and versatile enough that every encounter feels like your own story. You know a system's good when players are comparing notes on whether stealth, hybrid builds, or pure standoff styles feel best. And everyone's right. Performance-wise, it's a home run. Reddit's digital foundry crowd is pointing out that every mode, quality, performance, even the ray-traced one, actually feels polished. No stutters, no crashes, none of the usual caveats we've been burned by in other big releases. A fan summed it up as, finally a game in 2025 that feels finished at launch. That's almost sad we have to celebrate that, but hey, it matters. Now let's talk story, because this is where the game's identity really kicks in. Yeah, some folks are saying the revenge plot might not reinvent the wheel, but the delivery? People are floored. One comment stood out. Behind the cheesy facade lies a samurai action epic that cuts deep into morality and vengeance. Sucker Punch raised the bar. People will look back at this generation and regard Ghost of Yōtei as a true magnum opus. That's not casual hype. That's a fan declaring this game timeless. Another review went poetic. It's not just a story you play, it's a tragedy you feel, where every duel and every betrayal hits harder than the last. Of course, no game is bulletproof. Some players are saying it feels familiar, that it's more of the same. But here's the thing. When the same is already one of the best PlayStation exclusives ever, and now it's been refined, expanded, and pushed further, is that really a bad thing? As one fan put it, Ghost of Tsushima was a masterpiece. Yōtei is the director's cut of that masterpiece. That's about as glowing as it gets. So yeah, the conversation around Ghost of Yōtei isn't just that it's good, it's that it's a defining moment for the PS5 era. A game that's going to sit at the top of best of lists for years. It's cinematic, it's polished, it's emotionally gripping, and it's reminding everyone why Sucker Punch is one of Sony's crown jewel studios. We went into this PlayStation State of Play already knowing a couple of things. Saros gameplay was guaranteed, and there were whispers floating around that Wolverine might finally show up. And sure enough, those two ended up being the biggest highlights of the entire showcase. So let's start with Saros. If you don't know, Soros is the next game came from Housemarque, the same studio behind Returnal. These guys are basically masters of particle effects and fast-paced arcade-style gameplay, but in the AAA space. And Soros? It looks exactly like the kind of thing you'd expect from them, only darker. The tagline they showed off was, "Come back stronger," and the core mechanic really leaned into that. Essentially, when you die, you get one more shot instantly, but now you're stronger, faster, and more dangerous. It's like a last stand system, and honestly, it looked sick. And then, of course, they showed off Rahul Kohli as the lead. Yeah, Rahul freaking Kohli. Seeing him in a big PlayStation exclusive like this, that was a moment. The vibe is darker, the stakes feel heavier than Returnal, but it's still very clearly Housemarque DNA. If you loved Returnal, this is gonna be one to keep your eye on. But the big showstopper, obviously, was Wolverine. We finally got a meaty look at gameplay from Insomniac, and man, it looked brutal. Now, we all knew it was going to be violent. You can't make a Wolverine game without blood and guts, but seeing it in motion was still a shock. Remember, Insomniac's last big Marvel projects were the Spider-Man games, which are flashy and fun, but not exactly ripping throats out levels of violent. Wolverine is the complete opposite. They're leaning all the way into the savagery. The footage showed Logan doing everything you'd want, revving down highways on his motorcycle, leaping off rooftops, stabbing dudes straight through the neck. It was raw, it was cinematic, and it finally felt like the Wolverine game fans have been waiting decades for. On top of that, they teased some major villains. Omega Red popped up, Mystique too, and you just know Kraven's gonna be lurking somewhere in the story. Insomniac hinted at more characters straight out of the Wolverine comics, so fans have plenty to look forward to. Honestly, it feels like they're building a full-on Wolverine universe. At this point, I think most people trust Insomniac completely. Between Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and Spider-Man 2, they've proven they know how to handle Marvel IP. And now they're taking everything they've learned and channeling it into something grittier and bloodier. It feels like a step up, both in tone and ambition. Now, the curveball of the show, hardware. Sony revealed a pair of wireless speakers with built-in mics and a whole set of features. At first, you're like, why? But it actually makes a lot of sense. Sony's been pushing more and more of its first-party games to PC. Spider-Man, Horizon, The Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, and a lot of players are bridging that PS5/PC ecosystem. Having high-quality audio hardware designed for both makes sense. And Sony already has a good track record here. The Pulse 3D headset and earbuds were excellent. These speakers look like a smart expansion of that lineup. Beyond that, there were a couple of interesting extras. Deus Ex is getting remastered, which is awesome news for old-school fans. Let It Die Inferno is coming out of nowhere. And Chronoscript, this one looked wild. Overwhelming detail, almost too much to take in at once. But it definitely caught my eye. So how do I grade the showcase overall? Pretty strong. There was plenty of variety. Some cool third-party reveals, some remasters, some weird experimental stuff, but the headliners were exactly what we wanted. Soros looked tight. Housemarque knows how to deliver. Wolverine, absolute show stealer. We got gameplay, we got set pieces, we got villains. We even got a look behind the scenes at Insomniac's vision for the project. And then Sony even slipped in some hardware announcements that actually make sense in the bigger picture. So here we go again. Xbox fan accounts already laughing and crying on X about Wolverine. They're spamming PlayStation is garbage, tossing in the laughing emojis, and acting like Insomniac just fumbled the ball. And you know what's funny? 6 months from now, the exact same people are going to be begging for a port, just like they did with Spider-Man, just like they did with God of War, just like they did with Ghost of Tsushima. It's the cycle of hope, and this screenshot deserves to be plastered in the dictionary right next to the word itself. Because here's the reality. Xbox fans clown a game at reveal, then 6 months later when it's sitting at 90+ on Metacritic, when the reviews are glowing, when Digital Foundry is breaking down the insane tech, they suddenly flip. They turn into port beggars overnight. When's it coming to PC? When's it coming to Game Pass? It's predictable, it's embarrassing, and it happens every single time. And let's not pretend this is new. Spider-Man dropped in 2018. Xbox fans spent years mocking it. Then it it came to PC in 2022, and suddenly they're like, oh, actually, this is peak superhero gaming. God of War, same story. Ghost of Tsushima. They went from mid-samurai movie clone to why can't Xbox get games like this? That's not just hypocrisy, that's straight up fanboy amnesia. Meanwhile, Xbox's own first-party output has been struggling. Redfall launched broken. Starfield disappointed a ton of people with bland planets. And Perfect Dark has been rebooted more times than I can count. They don't have a Wolverine in the pipeline. They don't have a Spider-Man. Hell, they don't even have a Ghost of Tsushima level exclusive lined up right now. And that's the real reason tweets like this exist. It's cope. It's easier to laugh at PlayStation than to face the drought on your own console. Xbox's big flex at Tokyo Game Show was Forza Horizon 6. And guess what? Even that's coming to PS5. The one franchise people usually point to as a true Xbox exclusive isn't even staying exclusive anymore. That means literally every single game in this lineup. Forza, Call of Duty Black Ops 7, Ninja Gaiden 4, Dragon Quest 12, Age of Mythology, Fatal Frame 2 Remake, Gungrave Gore, Double Dragon Revive. All of them are hitting PlayStation Day 1 or shortly after. So, what did this showcase really show us? That Xbox just ran a state of play for PlayStation owners. And the funniest part, Xbox fans are hyping it up as if it's some giant win, when in reality, they basically advertised PlayStation's upcoming slate for them. If you've got a PS5, you didn't miss a single thing. In fact, you're probably eating better because you're getting all these games plus Sony's own first-party exclusives on top.